The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 5, Section 7, Etiquettes and Manners. Again, in the West, ideas of decency and etiquette vary in accordance with the different countries. With the English and Americans, they are of one type, with the French of another, and with the German again different. The Russians and the Tibetans have much in common, and the Turks have their own quite distinct custom, and so on. In Europe and America, the people are extremely particular in observance or in observing privacy, much more than we are. We are vegetarians and so eat a quantity of vegetables, etc. And living in the hot country, we frequently drink 1 or 2 glasses of water at a time. The peasant of the upper provinces eats 2 pounds of powdered barley and then set to drawing and drinking water from the well now, from the well ever now and again, as he feels so thirsty. In summer, we keep open places in our houses for distributing water to the thirsty through a hollowed bamboo stems. These ways make the people not so very particularly about privacy. They cannot help it. Compare compare cowsheds and horses, stables with lions and tiger cages. Compare the dog with the goat. The food of the Western year is chiefly meat, and in cold countries they hardly drink any water. Gentlemen take a little wine in small glasses. The French detest water, and only American drinks it in great quantities, for their country is a warm in summer. New York is even hotter than Calcutta. The Germans drink a good deal of beer, but not with their meals. In cold countries, men are always susceptible. In cold countries, men are always susceptible to catching cold, so they cannot help sneezing. In warm countries, people have to drink much water at meals. Subsequently and consequently, we cannot help eru- eructating. Eructating. Now note the etiquettes. If you do that in the Western society, your sin is unpardonable. But if you bring out your pocket handkerchief and blow your nose vigorously, it will see nothing objectable in that. With us, the host will not feel satisfied. So to say, unless he sees you doing the formal, as that is taken as a sign of full meal. But what would you think of doing the latter when having a meal in the company of others? In England and America, no mention of indigestion or any stomach complaints you may be suffering from should be made before the woman. It is different matter, of course, if your friend is an old woman or if she is quite well known to you. They are not so sensitive about these things in French. Germans are even less particular. English and America, English and American men are very guarded in their conversation before women. You cannot even speak of the leg. The French, like us, are very free in conversation. The Germans and Russians will use vulgar terms in the presence of anybody. But conversations on being in love are freely carried on between mother and son, between brother and sister, and between them and their fathers. The father asks the daughter many questions about her lover, the future bridegroom, and cuts all sort of jokes about her engagement. On such occasion, the French maiden modestly hang down her head. English maiden is blushful, and American maidens give gives him sharp reply to his face. Kissing and even embarrassing, kissing and even embrace are not so very objectable. These things can be talked of in society, but in our country, no talk, nor even an indirect hint of love affairs is permissible before superior relations. The Westerners are now rich people, unless one's dress is very clean and conforming and in conformity with strict etiquette. one will not be considered a gentleman and cannot mix in the society. A gentleman must change his collar and shirt twice or thrice every day. The poor people, of course, cannot do this. On the outer garment, there must not be a stain or even a crease. However much you may suffer from heat, you must go out with gloves for fear of getting your hands dirty in the street, and to shake hands with the ladies with hands that are not clean is very ungentlemanlike. In politic in polit In polite society, if the act of spitting or rinsing the mouth or picking the teeth in be ever indulged in, the offender will be marked as the Chandala, a man of low caste and stoned. The dharma of the Westerners is worship of Shakti, the creative power regarded as a female principle. It is with them somewhat like the Vamachari worship of woman. As the tantric says on the left side of the woman, on the right the cup full of wine. In short, warm meat with ingredients. The tantrika religious is very mysterious and inscrutable even to the yogis. It is this worship of Shakti that is openly and universally practiced. The idea of motherhood, that is the relation of a son to his mother, is also noticed in a great measure. Protestantism as a force is not very significant in Europe, where the religion is in fact Roman Catholic. In religion, Jehovah, Jesus, and the Trinity are secondary. There, the worship is for the mother. She, the mother, with the child, Jesus, in her arm. The emperor cries, Mother. The field marshal cries, Mother. The soldier with the flag in the hand cries, Mother. The seaman of at the helms cries mother. The fisherman in his rags cries mother. The beggar in the street cries mother. A million voices in the million ways from the million places. From the place, from the cottage, from the church cry mother, mother, mother. Everywhere is the cry of Ave Mary, day and night. Ave Mary, Ave Mary. Next is the worship of the woman. The worship of Shakti is not lust, but the Shakti Puja, the worship of the Kumari and the Sadhava, which is done in Varanasi, Kalighat, and other holy places. It is worship of Shakti, not in mere thought, not in imagination, but in actual visible form. Our Shakti worship is only in the holy places, and at certain times only is it performed. But there is in every place and always, for days, weeks, months, and years. Foremost is the woman's state. Foremost is her dress, her seat, her food, her wants, and her comfort. The first honor is all in all respect are accorded to her, not to speak of the noble born, not to speak of the young and the fair. It is the worship of any and every woman, be she an acquaintance or a stranger. The Shakti worship the Moors, the mixed Arab race, Mohammedan in religion, first introduced into Europe when they conquered Spain and ruled her for 8 centuries. It was the Moors who first sowed in Europe the seed of Western civilization and the Shakti worship. In course of time, the Moors forgot this Shakti worship and fell from their position of strength, culture, and glory to live scattered and unrecognized in an unnoticed corner of Africa, and their power and civilization passed over to Europe. Mother leaving the Moors smiled her loving blessings on the Christians and illumined their homes. Next, France, Paris. What is this Europe? Why are the black and browns, the yellow, the red habitant of Asia, Africa, and America bend low at the feet of Europeans? Why are they sole rulers of Kali Yuga? To understand this, Europe one has to understand her through France, the fountainhead of everything that is highest in the West, the supreme power that rules the world in Europe and in of this country. The great center is Paris. Paris is the center of the Western culture. Here in Paris matures and ripens every idea of the Western ethics, manners, and customs, light or darkness, good or evil. This Paris is like a vast ocean in which there is many a precious gem, coral, pearl, and in which again there are sharks and other rapacious sea animals as well. Of Europe, the central field of work, the Karma Kshetra in French, is France. A picturesque country, neither very cold nor very warm, very fertile, weather neither excessively wet nor extremely dry, sky clear, sun sweet elms and oaks in abundance, grasslands charming, hills and rivers small, springs delightful. Excepting some parts of China, no other country in the world have I seen that is so beautiful as France. The play of beauty in water and fascination in land, that madness in air, that ecstasy in the sky, nature so lovely, the man so fond of beauty, rich and the poor, the young and the old, keep their houses, their rooms, their streets, their field and garden, and walk the walk so artistically neat and clean, the whole country looks like a picture. Such love of nature and art have I seen nowhere else except in Japan. The palatial structure, the garden resembling Indra's paradise, the groves, even the farmers' fields, everywhere and in everything there is an attempt at beauty, an attempt at art, remarkable and effected with success too. From ancient times, France has been the scene of conflict among the Gauls, the Romans, the Franks, and the other nations. After the destruction of Roman Empire, the Franks obtained absolute dominion over Europe. Their king, Charles, Charlemagne, forced Christianity into Europe. By the power of the sword, Europe was made known in Asia by their Franks, by these Franks. Since we still call the European Franki, Firangi, Planki, or Filinga, and so on. Ancient Greece, the fountainhead of the Western civilization, sank into oblivion from the pinnacles of her glory. The vast empire of Rome was broken into pieces by the dashing waves of the barbarian invaded. The light of Europe went out. It was at this time that another barbarian race rose out of obscurity in Asia, the Arabs. With extraordinary rapidity, that Arab tide began to spread over the different part of the world. Powerful Parsis had to kiss the ground before the Arabs and adopt the Mohammedan religion, with the result that the Muslim religion took quite a new shape. The religion of the Arabs and the civilization of the Parsi became intermingled. With the sword of Arabs, the Parthian civilization began to disseminate in all directions. That Persian civilization had been borrowed from the ancient Greece and India. From the Asia and from the West, the waves of Muslim invaders dashed violently on Europe, and along with them also the light of wisdom and civilization began to disappear. The darkness of blind and barbarian Europe, the wisdom, learning, and the art of the ancient Greek enter into Italy, overpowered the barbarian, and with their quickening impulse, life began to pulsate in the dead bodies of the world capital of Rome. The pulsation of this new life took a strong and formidable shape in the city of Florence. Old Italy began showing signs of new life. This is called the Renaissance, the new birth. But this new birth was for Italy only. a rebirth, while for the rest of the Europe it was the first birth. Europe was born in the 16th century AD. That is about the time when Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and other Mughal emperors formally established their mighty emperor in India. Italy was the old nation. At the call of the Renaissance, he woke up and gave her response, but only to turn over on her side in bed, as it were, and fall fast asleep again. For various reasons, India also stirred up. For various reasons, India also stirred up a little at this time. For three ruling generations from Akbar, learning, wisdom, and art came to be much estimated in India. But India was also a very old nation, and for some reason or other, she also did the same as Italy and slept on again. In Europe, the tide of revival in Italy struck the powerful young and new nation, the Franks. The torrent of civilization flowing from all quarters into the Florence and their uniting assumed a new form, but Italy had not the power within herself to hold that stupendous mass of fresh energy. The revival would have, as in India, ended there, had it not been for the good fortune of Europe that the new nation of the Franks gladly took up the energy, and they, in the vigor of their youthful blood boldly floated their national ship on the tide, and the current of that progress gradually gathered in volume and strength. From one From one, it swelled into the thousand courses. The other nations of Europe greedily took the water of that tide into their own countries by cutting new channels and increased its volume and speed by pouring their own lifeblood into it. The tidal wave broke in the fullness of time on the shore of India. It reached as far as the coast of Japan, and she began revitalized by bathing in its water. Japan is the new nation of Asia. Paris is the fountainhead of European civilization, as Gomukhi is of the Ganga. This huge metropolis is a vision of heaven on earth, the city of constant rejoicing. Such luxuries, such enjoyments, such mirthfulness are neither in London nor in Berlin nor anywhere else. True, there is wealth in London and in New York. In Berlin, there is learning and wisdom, but nowhere is that French soil, and above all, nowhere is the genius of the Frenchman. Let there be wealth in plenty. Let there be learning and wisdom. Let there be beauty of nature also elsewhere. But where is the man? This remarkable French character is the incarnation of the ancient Greek, as it were, that had died to be born again. Always enjoyful, always joyful, always full of enthusiasm, very light and silly, yet again exceedingly grave, prompt, and to be every work, resolute to do every work, and again despondent at the least resistance, but that despondence is only for the moment. With Frenchman, his face soon after glowing again with fresh hope and trust. The Paris University is the model of European university. All the academics of science that are in the world are imitations of the French Academy. Paris is the first teacher of the founding of colonial emperor. The terms used in military art in all languages are still most French. The style and the diction of French writing are copied in the European language, of science, of philosophy, and art. And this Paris is the mine. Everywhere, in every respect, there is imitation of French, as if the French were the townspeople and other nations only villagers compared with them. What the French initiates, the Germans, the English, and the other nation imitates maybe 50 to 25 years later, whether it be in learning or in art or in social matter. This French civilization reached Scotland, and when the Scottish king became the King of England. It awoke and aroused England. It was during the reign of the Stroud dynasty of Scotland that the Royal Society and other institutions were established in England. Again, France in the home of liberty. From here, the city of Paris traveled with tremendous energy, the power of the people, and shook the very foundation of Europe. From that time, the face of Europe has completely changed and a new Europe has come into existence. Liberty, equality, fraternity is no more heard in France. She is now pursuing other ideas and other purposes, while the spirit of French Revolution is still working among the other nations of Europe. One distinguished scientist of England told me the other day that Paris was the center of the world and that the more a nation would succeed in establishing its connection with the city of Paris, the more would that nation's progress in national life be achieved. Though such assertion is the partial exaggeration of fact, yet it is certainly true that if anyone has to give to the world any new idea, this Paris is the place for its dissemination. If one can gain the approbation of the citizens of Paris, that voice, the whole of the Europe is sure to echo back. The sculptor, the painter, the musician, the dancer, or any artist, if he can first obtain celebrity in Paris, acquires very easily the esteem and eulogy of other countries. We hear only of the darker side of this Paris in our country. That is the horrible place, a hell on earth. Some of the English hold this view, and the wealthy people of other countries is whole eyes. No other enjoyment is possible in the life except the gratification of the senses. Naturally, see, Paris has the home of immorality and enjoyment, but it is the same in all big cities of the West, such as London, Berlin, Vienna, New York. The only difference is in the other countries the means of enjoyment are commonplace and vulgar. But the very dirt of civilized Paris is coated over with gold leaf. To compare the refined enjoyment of Paris with the barbarity in this respect of other cities is to compare the wild boar swallowing in the mere with the peacock's turn spread out its feathers like a fan. What nation in the world has not the longing to enjoy and live the life of pleasure? Otherwise, why should those who get rich hasten to Paris? Of all places, why do king and emperors, assuming other names, come to Paris? The life incognito, and feel themselves happy by bathing in this whirlpool of sense enjoyment. The longing is in all the countries, and no pains are spared to satisfy it. The only difference is the French has perfected it as a science. They know how to enjoy. They have arisen to the highest rung of the ladder of enjoyment. Even then, most of the vulgar dances and amusement are for the foreigners. The French people are very cautious. They never waste money, nor waste money for nothing. All those luxuries, those expensive hotels and cafes at which the cost of a dinner is enough to ruin one, are for the rich, foolish foreigners. The French are highly refined, profuse in etiquettes, polished and suave in their manners, clever in drawing money from one's pocket, and when they do, they laugh in their sleeves. Besides, there is another thing to note. Society, as it is among the Americans, Germans, and English, is open to all nations, so the foreigners can quickly see the ins and outs of it. After an acquaintance of a few days, the Americans will invite one to live in his house for a while. The German also do the same. The English do so after a long acquaintance, but it is very different with the French. Frenchman will never invite one to live with his family unless he is very intimately acquainted with him. But when a foreigner gets such an opportunity and has occasion and time enough to see and know the family, he forms quite a different opinion from what he generally hears. Is it not equally foolish for the foreigners to venture on opinions on our national character as they do by seeing only the low quarters of Calcutta? So with Paris. The unmarried women in France are as well guarded as in our country. They cannot even mix freely in the society. Only after marriage can they do so in company with their husband. Marriage can they do so with company with their husband. Like us, their negotiation for marriage are carried on by their parents. Being a jolly people, none of their big social functions will be complete without professional dancers, as with us, performance of dancing girls are given on the occasions of marriage and puja. Living in the dark, foggy country, the English are gloomy, make long faces, and remark that such dance at one's home are very improper, but at the theatre they are all right. It should be noted here that their dance may appear improper to our eyes, but not so with them. They've been accustomed to them. The girl may, at a dance, appear in the dress showing the neck and shoulder, and that is not taken and improper. And the English and American would not object to attending such dance, but on going home might not refrain from condemning the French customs. Again, the idea is the same everywhere regarding the chastity of the woman whose deviation from is fraught with danger. But in the case of men, it does not matter so much. The Frenchman is no doubt a little freer in this respect, and like the rich men of other countries, cares not for the criticism. Generally speaking, in Europe, the majority of men do not regard a little lax conduct as so very bad, and in the West, the same is the case with the bachelors. The parent of the young student consider it rather a drawback if a later fight shy of women, lest they become effeminate. The one excellence which a man must have in the West is courage. Their word virtue, and our word viratva. Their word virtue and our word viratva, that is heroism, are one and the same. Look at the derivation of the word virtue and see what they call goodness in men. For women, they hold chastity as the most important virtue, no doubt. One man marrying more than one woman is not so injurious to the society as a woman having more than one husband at the same time, for the latter leads to the gradual decay of the race. Therefore, in all countries, good care is taken to preserve the chastity of the woman. Behind this attempt of every society to preserve the chastity of the woman is seen the hand of nature. The tendency of nature is to multiply the population, and the chastity of woman is to multiply the population. Chastity of woman helps that tendency. Therefore, in being more anxious about the purity of woman than the man, every society is only assisting nature in the fulfillment of her purpose. The object of my speaking of these things is to impress upon you the fact that life of each nation has a moral purpose of its own, and the manners and customs of the nation must be judged from the standpoint of that purpose. The Westerners should be seen through their eyes, to see them through our eyes, and for them to see us with their. Both are the mistakes. The purpose of our life is quite the opposite of theirs. The Sanskrit name for the student is brahmacharin, is synonym with the Sanskrit word kamajit. our goal of life is moksha. How can that be ever attained without brahmacharya or absolute continence? Hence, it is imposed upon our boys and youth as an indispensable condition during their studentship. The purpose of life in the West is bhog. Enjoying hence must attend to strict brahmacharya is not so indispensable necessary with them as it is with us. Now, to return to Paris, there is no city in the world that can compare with modern Paris. Formerly, it was quite different from what it is now. It was somewhat like the Bengali quarters of Varanasi, with zigzag lanes and streets, two houses joined together by the arch over the lane here and there, wells by the side of the walls, and so on. In the last exhibition, they showed a model of old Paris, but that Paris has completely disappeared by gradually changing. The warfare and revolution through which the city has passed have each time caused ravages in one part or another, razing everything to the ground, and again new Paris has rise at its place, extensive, cleaner and more extensive.